Well, that was a great overview of sustainability, and now I'd like to begin our discussion with our experts. Kim, let's kick it off with you. How do you define sustainability, and what does it mean to our industry?
Yeah, so sustainability is a tricky word because 100 people will have 100 different answers. Beef has defined sustainability as being larger than the traditional sustainability definition of just carbon footprint or greenhouse gas emissions. And really, the beef industry was interested in understanding a more balanced approach to sustainability that included a measurement of beef's contributions in environmental responsibility, economic opportunity, and social diligence.
And Bo, tell us, what is the beef industry sustainability assessment, and why is it so important in your opinion?
Well, it's so important to us because we know that our global population is growing by leaps and bounds, and we're hearing that by 2050 we need to produce 70% more food than we do today. We believe if we're going to meet that challenge, it's very important for beef to be at the table. We have to be part of that equation. So that's one of the reasons we're doing this assessment study. We're looking all the way, looking at each step of the way as we go from the cow-calf guy all the way to the consumer, so that we can look at the inputs and the outputs there, so that when the study is completely finished, we can go back and see where we can increase our efficiencies along that chain. The other thing people need to understand is this study, as you mentioned earlier, this is the largest sustainability study ever done. We're setting new standards for sustainability, and why that's important to us is that with us being in the global market, we need to be setting those standards. We need to be at the table. We need to be part of that discussion. And we believe with this study, with us setting the new standards for sustainability work, that we will be able to lead that discussion, which is important for our U.S. producers.
Now, this assessment, as I understand, was funded by the Beef Checkoff. And Scott, maybe tell us a little bit more about why the Checkoff chose to invest its resources in this assessment.
Well, you know, for years the cattle industry has faced a lot of scrutiny. And we've been hearing we need to be more sustainable. You need to be greener. We in the cattle producers have always felt like we have been very good caretakers of the land and the water and the cattle we work with. But we've been viewed as biased because we are producers. What we've lacked is a scientific study there where we literally had the information we could stand up and say, look, this shows that we are being sustainable. Since this affects all cattle producers, irregardless of what sector of the cattle raising business they're in, and because all cattle producers pay the checkoff, we thought it entirely appropriate that the checkoff be used as the funding mechanism to conduct this study, because it will benefit all of us and it will help reassure our consumers.
And I guess, you know, I'm glad to hear you say that, because my perception is we have had a sustainable industry. But Bo, why is measuring sustainability so important all of a sudden?
Well, you're right. We've made great progress through the years. The issue is that our consumers and our customers today are more demanding than ever. They're asking for more transparency. We will know how you produce our food. But they're also asking us the question, how sustainable is your industry? And so what we need to do is that we do not have the data. We did not have the data. We did not have the database. And so that's another thing that's associated with this particular project. We now have the database, so we can respond with accurate data to not only the consumers, but also to the greatest critics that we have. We have the data to defend what we're saying.
And Kim, maybe give us some insight. There seems to be a lot of variables here that factor into overall industry sustainability. How is it even scientifically possible to measure all those variables?
Right. So we use what's called a life cycle assessment to measure sustainability. And in its simplest definition, it's just really an accounting system of all inputs and outputs. So that's most tangible to understand when you look at the pre-harvest sectors of our industry. So the packing and case-ready and retail sectors. And if you think about the way that the consumer buys beef, it's in a styrofoam package. So for example, that styrofoam and that plastic would be inputs. So we account for those and then account for those outputs. Now on the pre-harvest side, it's a little more difficult, right? Because we know that there's so much biological variability. So we use dynamic computer models that are based in math and predict weather emissions for every minute over 25 years. So there's equations that then take into account temperature, rain, soil type, maybe grass type. And then from there, we can basically predict those biological inputs like forage growth or cattle growth to understand full chain sustainability.
Well, no doubt, sustainability is a complex topic, but you all have done a wonderful job providing some foundational understanding upon which we can build for today's discussion. Ahead on this special edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman, experts from the pre-harvest and post-harvest side of the beef industry discuss what it means to be sustainable and the importance of sustainability in feeding a growing global population. Stay with us. We'll be right back.